Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here in our January 2023 Winter Soiree, hosted by the SIGGRAPH Education Committee. We have a wonderful program ahead, and of course, we'll kick off with our keynote. And with us, we have Glenn Goldman, who is the chair of the Education Committee and has a long history of working with education and all things SIGGRAPH, as well as Mike Kehoe. And Glenn, I think I'll leave it to you to introduce both of you.
So first of all, good morning. Hopefully we can see it. All right, good morning, everyone. I know people are here from different times of day. I saw some of you are from quite a distance. It's an absolute pleasure to be with all of you. We're glad that you're able to spend some time with us this Friday in January. It's a second soiree sponsored by the ACM Education Committee. So I'm wearing sort of two hats today. First, I'm welcoming you as chair, and then also be talking to you as a presenter. But I want to thank everyone who made this possible, especially Nick Jushchyshyn from Drexel University, who really came up with the idea of these soirees for the first one last May. And in spite of all of his other commitments to SIGGRAPH and all the time that he's spending on here, he was able to put this one together as well. So now I'm going to talk about collaboration, and it would make no sense for me to talk about collaboration if I wasn't actually collaborating. So with me is, in this case, is Mike Kehoe, manager of emerging technologies in the digital learning support group at NJIT. So we're going to talk in this instance about an emerging technology that facilitates collaboration. I should also tell you that, and it's not working, sorry about that. There we go. I wanted to tell you that Mike and I, and Mike's position, is a collaborative one. When we first started the School of Art and Design, or started working on it in 2007, Mike Kehoe and his group were completely involved as vested partners in discussing the types of programs we could have, what our requirements would be. Nothing was done in a vacuum. Everybody was working together in order to understand what it is we could do, wanted to do, were able to do, long-term plans, what we could do immediately, and so on. I've seen enough places to know that this kind of collaboration is rare, and we were fortunate at NJIT to have it, and we had support of the CIO at the time and everyone else, and all of this was working together to create a collaborative environment. Now, our goal was to, and I'll expand on this, was in this particular instance, was to get collaboration among students, specifically seniors in the School of Art and Design, to work on a single project and what that involves. Now, in order to do that, my first inclination, well, what does Google say about collaboration? So instead of that, Google is so old, I went to ChatGPT on Wednesday. And of course I had to ask it how do designers collaborate? And this is what I got. And I don't want to read it to you, but one of the things that came up immediately was that you want to get people, if you're collaborating from different disciplines, to leverage the strength of each discipline by using different software programs. And it became a little bit, I edited this down, it became a little repetitive. Mike noticed it was a little bit like the History Channel documentary where we had, they told you what you were going to say, they said something, and then they kind of recapped it. And this is sort of what we had, and they talked about different types of applications. And this, again, this was on Wednesday, so this is actually what we had been doing. This is when we created the Collaborative Design Studio 15 years ago. This was really part of the idea that students would be bringing in their different disciplines and what they knew and skill sets and try to work together on a single project. And those projects vary based on the instructor, and the students get to choose each year. And for the most part, they'll get 3 or 4 choices a year, and literally only a couple of people over the last 12 years or so didn't get their first or second choice. So we tried to make these fairly different and distinct based on what we perceive as student interests and faculty interests, and of course the technology that we have available. So what we tried to do in this particular case was to get a single model accessible to all participants, where all the collaborators can work with whatever discipline-specific platform they wanted, and to use this as a base for multiple deliverables. And those included animations, 3D printed products, orthographic projections if you're dealing with set design or something else. So we tried to do all of this in one. And our solution, as we thought, or what we hoped, was NVIDIA's Omniverse, which is a scalable multi-GPU real-time reference development platform. So what's going to happen now is that Mike is going to explain how that works and what we did or tried to do and what it does and would allow us to do. And then I'm going to come back and show you what happened when we tried this. So I'm going to stop sharing. And then Mike, it's your turn. And then I'll come back when you're finished.
Good morning, everybody. You should see a slide of an Omniverse overview slide. It's going to be the start of my overview of what the Omniverse platform is. I can't see all of you anymore, so if somebody does not see the slide, please stop me before I go on. As Glenn said, me and my team have been embedded in the College of Architecture and Design for quite some time now, over 20 years. And when the school was evolved, as Glenn said, we played a role in trying to figure out what technologies would be integrated into the curriculum. Our role in this is really a partner between the Internet Services and Technology Division at NJIT and also the school. So we don't see our role in the process to dictate what technologies anyone will use within the curriculum. Ours is to understand what the ambitions are and to go out there and try to find tools and platforms. So with what Glenn has set up, one of the emerging technologies that are out there from NVIDIA is this Omniverse platform that I'm going to go over here today. The screen that you see up, the slide that you see up in front of you right now is sort of the end slide, but I'm going to show it first because what I want you to remember from this slide is that what you're seeing here is an app called Create. The image on the screen is a demo from NVIDIA that is called the Brownstone demo that really kind of shows how all these assets that I'm about to go through and how all the components connect together. So what is the Omniverse platform? In a nutshell, it's a platform that does for VFX and digital designers exactly what Google Docs or Office 365 did for content collaborators, but it takes it a step further. So we all know the value of what Google did by creating a repository for a document or an Excel spreadsheet to have multiple collaborators collaborate in real time. You can edit that document, you can add content, you can have people working on different parts and pieces of that document or spreadsheet. You see those updates in real time and you see how it fits into the larger project, the larger document, which in this case is akin to a model. So imagine if you could then have everyone interacting with a Google document, speaking their own native language to the Google document, and Google in real time then converts that interaction into the native language or the desired native language of the final product in the document. So that's what the Omniverse platform tries to be. I like to call it a unified theory of everything. And it's based on Pixar's, a development from Pixar that is called Universal Scene Descriptor. You can compare this to things like XML, where we're making an extensible markup language to describe the objects that we want to see and bring them into, put them in a repository where different tools can then interact with that XML description. For the purposes of this conversation, we're going to focus on the pieces of the Omniverse that are connect and nucleus. There are several key pieces to the Omniverse platform. Connect is a series of connectors from our favorite pieces of software. Nucleus can kind of be seen like the Google Documents repository. That's where all the data, the assets, the USD files are stored, your materials, and ultimately the model is created in a stage. Kit is the basic framework that anyone can use to extend the platform to create connectors, extensions, to come up with new applications for the platform. The simulation part of this has the simulation libraries built into it, and then the rendering area. But the rendering area has rendering libraries. But we're not going to focus on that one today. So again, the key pieces that I'm going to talk about right now are these Omniverse Nucleus and Omniverse connectors, as well as the Omniverse launcher. And what that leads to is a scenario where you have a subscription to the Omniverse platform and you start with the Omniverse launcher. That is your doorway into the platform. From the Omniverse launcher, you can pick the components of the platform that you want to work with. So in our case for today, Omniverse Nucleus is going to be one of those pieces of the Omniverse platform. That is your file share storage. That's where all of the files, assets, materials, and models are going to be created and stored so that the collaborators have a place to go to interact with your model. The connectors are pieces of middleware that exist, say, between Revit or Houdini to convert the native model of Revit or Houdini to USD, and then upload that into the Nucleus cloud, the Nucleus part of this, which can be a Nucleus cloud application. So there's different components of Nucleus, and some of this could be cloud-based, much like Google's cloud, or some of this could be hosted locally on site if that's what you want to, if that's the way you want to set up the architecture of this. And what that leads to is the concept of redesigning your VFX pipeline. So I took this slide from the GTC September 22 GTC keynote with NVIDIA, because I thought it was a very powerful way, a very nice way of explaining what the Omniverse platform, the value of the Omniverse platform is. So this is a company called DeYoung. This is their existing VFX pipeline for a project that they worked for the, NVIDIA for the keynote speech. And you can see all of our favorite software here and how all of the different pieces are exported and imported into the various pieces of software. And it's kind of a confusing and complex design pipeline. What the Omniverse platform aims to do is, again, allow these pieces of software to natively talk to a centralized model in their own native format, so that anyone that's working in these pieces of software can just interact with that piece of the model and do what they need to do natively without having to worry about how they're exporting or importing, that part of the model to another piece of software. This is another slide that I thought illustrated the promise of the value of the Omniverse platform very well, because this is the existing production pipeline for how they see their workflows going. And then this is what the Omniverse platform aims to do by refining the workflow so that every person that's working on this particular function can just interact with the model that's sitting out in Nucleus on the stage. All that made possible by translating the data from the native software tools to Nucleus using USD. Right now, there's a limited number of connectors. in the Omniverse platform, because that is the key to making all of these collaborations work. So we can see that there are connectors for Rhino. We can see that there's a Revit connector, ArcGIS, 3ds Max. The other key to this platform is that NVIDIA doesn't want to be the gatekeeper to what can be developed on the platform. They want to be the developers of the platform, and then they want to give everyone the ability to extend it how they see fit. So the connectors right now that you see here in front of you show how much industry support. There's some heavy hitters there. There's McNeil, there's Adobe, and there's Autodesk. So that tells you that there's industry support behind these things. But the Omniverse developers have developed a community. They've spent a significant amount of time developing that community so that anyone can develop a connector, anyone can develop an extension to bring into this platform for whatever they need, whatever they're trying to develop, whatever project they're working on. Where I started are with these videos. So I'm going to talk a little bit about where we started, how we got into identifying this tool as a tool that would work and fit well into what Glenn was trying to accomplish. Because the Omniverse platform, the ecosystem is extensive, and you can get lost for days and weeks going through the various components of that platform. So I started by watching the GTC sessions, and this is one that I highly recommend, because that's where you sort of get how all of the connectors and all the different components of the Omniverse platform click together to help you, increase the efficiencies of your workflows. The other one that was really important for me to watch was this transforming global film production workflow. And then from there, we started with the product, really on the product's website and the product's developer documentation. So from there, we discovered the Discord server, and I highly, highly recommend that if any of you are interested in digging deeper on the Omniverse platform of tools, to go to the Discord server, because this is something that we discovered to be a very powerful tool for us. The developers at NVIDIA are there, and they're engaging with the community of professionals and enthusiasts who are trying to work with this platform and develop the connectors and extensions for that ecosystem. So they've spent a lot of time trying to explore a different way of how to get these tools into everyone's hands. And it's been very valuable to us, because when we have problems with, say, performance with any of the tools, we can go and talk to the developers. And that's something that's currently happening as we try to improve load times of the products and the different pieces of the applications that are included in the platform. So this final slide is the View app. And I said that I wanted to connect the first slide to the last slide in my talk here. The two major components of, once you get everything set up, the two major components that you're going to use to connect all of your models and assets together would be the Create app, where you're going to create the stage to bring everything in together to create a scene like what you see in front of you. And once you're done with that collaboration, you would then go into the View app, where you can actually present what's happening to customers, producers, anybody that's influencing or reviewing the development of the project. Once that's approved, or once they approve any of the markups or sort of feedback that they're giving you in real time using the View app, you can go right into making a sort of flyby or a movie or an animation simply from the stage that exists out in the Nucleus cloud. So I'm trying to connect the two pieces, to connect the workflow together there with View and Create. And I hope that that's enough of an overview to get you excited to look at the tool and kind of dig deeper into the tool, because there really is, almost a limitless number of paths that you can go down beyond the collaboration that we're talking about here today. So I'm going to stop sharing and turn this back over to Glenn.
So, thank you, Mike. So this is sounds like it's great, and it actually is. And we've done a proof of concept, and we know that it works. And this sort of summary, it tells you a little bit about what's happening, what it does. But I want to start by looking at the very bottom of this screen and cost. And while it is free to join, there's a barrier for entry. It works with their cards, which makes sense. It has to have an RTX series GPU. And if you start going into the enterprise version, it starts costing money. And this, you'll see that this is part of the reason it just didn't work for us yet, although we know how to fix it. So what I want to do is just take you now forward. So the project that we tested this on was an entertainment design project where we had to create movie proposals, including a trailer. And the students, groups of 3 or 4 students, had to include a trailer that was a look and feel and a movie based on some sort of classic science fiction book. And this was just for reference so that you know, these were the books that we have so far used as the source material for these projects. And they range from 1870, a remake of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, all the way up to something as recent as 2 years ago, or now 3 years ago, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. And I'll just show you some things that they had to do. So the intent was that interior and design architecture students everybody would use what they knew. One of the problems, just so you know, that not all of these applications have connectors or connectors yet into Omniverse. So industrial design students who were comfortable with SolidWorks found themselves, and using SolidWorks and Keyshot, found themselves on the outside. And the other thing that we found is that when you have 1 or even 2 digital design students, they all have different subdisciplines. So you might have a game designer, you may have people doing UI, UX, and every single student had to learn something new in this project. So just an example. So this was, what you see here is, this is part of the screen from, this was actually created by an interior designer. And this was the reality of what the students ended up doing. We had some students using this had 2 digital design students, Spencer and Ayana. They were doing some Blender. We ended up, and I'll show you some of the examples. We had an interior design student using Revit and Enscape, who also created merchandise to go along with the movie proposal and ended up creating STL files for the makerspace. So some of the things that they had to do. So a student in Blender was starting to create 3D models and did an animatic. All of this was done in Blender, while some of the buildings and the details and the interiors were done in Revit. We had Marvelous Designer was starting to use cloth simulation and creating design. And in order to put it all together, they had to figure out a way to do this. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But everyone was working on their own, and the trick became at the end. Same thing we had to do with the Prelude to Foundation, which was an Asimov book that students were then using a variety of applications. Houdini was used for part of this, and for the spaceships, and to create moving effects. Some of the buildings were done in Rhino or Revit, and they had to put it all together. And so this was their kind of workflow, and where each one was working independently. And you had all these different applications that they were working. And then we had another one. This is 9 Fox Gambit, which was really one of the, this came out well, but we had 3 students, a digital designer who primarily worked in Procreate only, an interior designer who worked in Revit, and an industrial designer who worked in SolidWorks and Keyshot. So the industrial designer ended up making things called servitors, which are, there were about a dozen of these little robots that were in the book, and that they were based on animals. He then 3D printed them as toys that you could be part of. He created the spaceships and the hangar and all the weapons. The interior designer, excuse me, did all of her work in Revit and Enscape, including the creation of a lot of MP4 files. So what you see here is, this was a book that talks about warring factions, mental torture, physical torture. It is a Korean book. One of our students read it in the original Korean. So on the bottom left, you have a mirror room for mental torture. The bottom right is actually the prison, which is at the very bottom. They had masses of people in the mess hall. And then you had a lot of 2D work and some of the character design. And this is what this student was able to do, and how you blend. And I'll show you, I hope I have, I don't know, I'm gonna have to really quickly have time to just show you how they ended up putting it all together. And these were some of what happened was that some of the stuff got remodeled in Revit, and some of the things were spliced together just in After Effects by using different applications. So while they all worked together and they spoke to each other all the time, they all had to work independently. And these were some of the other, another one, To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, where, sorry about that, where we had 2D character design, 3D character design in Maya, character texturing, and these moved weapons, spaceships, all the interior environments were created in Revit. And we even had a little, excuse me, we even used Lego Designer in order to create toys. And she has the entire list of Legos to build these spaceships in Legos. So what does all this mean? Well, why didn't it work? Timing counts. And when I mean timing, it means in the curriculum. They were introduced to the idea of working on each other's models. I mean, think of an essay where everyone can contribute, and it's kind of a free-for-all in Google Docs, which I've seen happen in elementary school. Children all start working on the same document, and it becomes bizarre. So students weren't quite ready. We introduced this to them at the beginning of the semester. The project matters and the equipment. The barrier to entry is an RTX file. So this was done with seniors. And most of them did not have an RTX card to begin with. So how do we can get this to actually work and for students to keep going? Excuse me. Well, one thing, we have to keep trying and allow for creative differences. We have to make it easier for them to fail. We have a foundation year where they are all working and they all learn they're introduced to 8 or 9 different applications, the Adobe Suite, they're introduced to the Corel series of products, Autodesk, Maya, 3ds Max, Revit, Rhino, SolidWorks. And they have projects in all of these over their entire freshman year. So they have an opportunity to work on different applications. And then when they start doing discipline-specific software in their second, third years, that kind of atrophy somewhat. I think in the very first year, we need to introduce a project that in a lab situation where we have the RTX files, RTX cards, excuse me, and that would enable students to at least get experience to the idea that that this can happen. And then the last thing is really provide access. And this is incredibly important. The barrier for entry is not cheap. And while our younger students now have RTX cards, by the time you get to senior year, the machines that they buy tend to be a little bit out of date. They're 3 years old. And architecture students, they have machines that are supposed to last them for 5 years. We would never, ever, ever want any company like NVIDIA or anybody else to stop innovating. So it is inevitable that as students move through the curriculum, the barrier for entry is going to rise because they are developing. And that's, and they are, so they're developing and that they want to be able to do new things. So students are always going to lag behind. And when you have a school like a public university, and most of them are underfunded, ours certainly is under-resourced, and you have a student population like ours, which is primarily first-generation college students. My own class is 50-50 in terms of people that will be identified as minority groups versus not. We have no majority group at this university. So there has to be a way that we have to deal with funding, or students will always be left behind. So this in part is a plea. I know you're all educators. A little bit, I think I'm talking to the converted, but maybe someone will hear this at some point. This is a plea for support for the kind of students and human resources that we have in order to make them ready to collaborate in a proper way. I am 1 minute over, so I don't know if I have another minute. Nick, can you tell me, do I have another minute and 15 seconds to show one video, or it's probably too late? So
I think this is fascinating enough that I will rule on favor of 1 minute and 15 seconds. And then maybe after that, Glenn, you could share, you could enter in like an email address or something that into the chat for everyone. Sure. That you can, folks could follow up with you, because this is absolutely fascinating. But of course, we are out of time for Q&A, and we want to make sure we get our next session going soon.
So I'm just going to show one trailer. I'm going to share. So this is the way this was done. You'll see a lot of. So some of this was done in rent, remodel projects from one program to another, and they estimated that 15% of the cost is spent just trying to put this stuff together from different applications. So imagine if they were working on this consistently, we wouldn't. First of all, you take that percent right off the top, and plus additional collaboration time, how much further you could get for a project. So as on 9 of these, they all went through the same kind of issues. One semester project in their 4th year, and they're all thrown together doing stuff they've never done, and not all of them. It's terrific. And that's pretty much it. And there's something like that for every film. And I will be quiet now, and I will find the chat, and you can, I will just put, you can.
Yeah, make sure you set the chat to everyone. Mike and Glenn, thank you very much. I've got my physical applause here. Hopefully folks have reaction buttons that they might be able to share digital applause on the in the webinar here. But I'm sure there's a lot of folks that would love to follow up and learn more. I'm one of them. So
the last pitch is get involved with SIGGRAPH, get involved with the education committee. We don't bite. We don't. I know you're going to talk more about it at the end. I will linger back with the attendees, and I look forward to enjoying everybody's participation. Thank you all for coming. Mike, thank you for working with me on this and the development of everything we've done since we started the School of Art and Design.